It is super interesting and indeed very instructive that for the first time in the history of the Republic of Kenya, we have two very strong political forces fiercely battling for control over health policy. It is of course fascinating because in the past, the issue of health and health policy has been left only to experts. This battle became very visible when President Uhuru Kenyatta partially lifted restrictions, specifically the cessation of movement into the two major cities in Kenya, Nairobi and Mombasa. And although this move was widely accepted by a vast majority of Kenyans, it took many analysts completely by surprise. Why? Simply because as the date for the president to review this policy neared, the numbers of those infected suddenly, unexpectedly, started shooting up, alarmingly. In retrospect, it is clear that one side of this political divide, oh yes, it's a political divide, were extremely determined to ensure that the president would have no other alternative but to extend the cessation of movement restrictions on two of Kenya's largest cities. And this side of the political divide did not give up even after the president's decision. We quickly started seeing the rhetoric in the media posing the question if the partial lifting of restrictions was a decision that Kenyans would regret. Now, if you're to stop for a minute, step back, and think through this development, you will realize that actually it doesn't make any sense to push any such rhetoric forward. Because the damage done on the economy and on the lives of Kenyans by the restrictions already are huge. It would take a person who is not human to completely ignore the human factor and focus on an administrative decision. Indeed, the very administrative decision, unprecedented. And many Kenyans are now saying, including medical experts, completely uncalled for. It just doesn't make sense for somebody with human feelings to ignore all the human suffering and focus on that decision. Focus on that administrative decision of locking down. And thus, once again, giving us very clear evidence that actually the lockdowns are significant. They have a certain political agenda. Very little or nothing to do with the health of the people. But we also saw the other side of this political divide flexing its muscles and pushing forward its arguments very aggressively in the press. And what amazed me and fascinated me is the fact that it soon became very clear that President Uhuru Kenyatta and his closest advisors, that is, his closest and most influential advisors, were against a continuation of restrictions. If you doubt this, then review the very detailed article in one of the major newspapers in the country, which went as far as releasing or revealing highly sensitive security information concerning the country called Kenya. And to the super observant, this is the strongest point against returning restrictions. and locking down the country again. That article said in part that the only organ in the country that is able to advise the president on whether we have enough security forces, enough personnel to enforce round 2 of a lockdown, much stricter than the first one, is the National Security Council. Now, as serious as this issue was, and indeed still is, I could not resist, but start thinking of my popcorns. When the plot thickened and the governors, oh yes, the Council of Governors and a vast majority of the governors in the country, started exerting immense pressure on the head of state to institute, to reintroduce lockdowns and cessation of movement in the 2 major cities in the country, Nairobi and Mombasa. One of the reasons why this development made me reach for my popcorn is because it reminded me very much of the push and pull over lockdowns and restrictions in the United States of America. Leta your popcorn kwanza, then I'll explain. Folks, what this latest development is clearly telling the keen observer is that one side of this political divide, the side that is for lockdown, is very closely linked to political forces in the United States of America. Now, those of us who have been around for some time analyzing politics and national issues are completely puzzled at these developments. And I'll tell you why. Until now, Western countries have never been bothered about health challenges facing Africa. Indeed, they have not even been bothered by disasters that have taken away the lives of thousands and sometimes millions of Africans. Just to give you one quick, memorable example. In the late 80s, early 90s, a very serious famine swept right across the country called Ethiopia. All diplomats and intelligence sources of major Western powers were very much aware of what was unfolding in Ethiopia. But they didn't lift a finger to help. Not even when photographic evidence of what was going on started to emerge in the media. Courtesy of photographers like the legendary Kenyan photographer who was called Mohammed Amin. It took the effort of major music artists coming together to sing We Are the World and to raise money, to help out, to feed, to save lives in Ethiopia. The governments were not concerned. Another quick example, the genocide in Rwanda. The Western world stood aside, completely inactive and completely unwilling to do anything, as the lives in large numbers, we are told over 1 million, were lost, when they were very capable of stepping in, at least for humanitarian reasons. And I can go on and on. But then with this virus, hii kitu ni speciali sana, mpaka mambo yamebadilika kabisa. Wazungu na nchi kubwa za dunia zinahusika na zinajali sana kwa ghafla maisha ya Mwafrika. Hiyo umesikia wapi? Mjinga na mpumbavu peke yake, yaani mtu ambaye ana akili timamu, ndio anaweza kusema hii jambo ni ya kawaida. Kwa sababu ni wazi hata kwa mtoto ambaye ameanza shule jana kwamba hii jambo ya hii virusi vya mchina sio kitu ya kawaida. Ni kitu ambaye iko na agenda ya kisiasa, na wale ambao wanataka kujua kwa undani pia iko na agenda kubwa ya kishetani. Huo ndo ukweli wa mambo. Kama wewe ni Mwafrika, amka sasa hivi. Ama kama utaki kuamka, utaamushwa ukielekea kwa mauti. Hiyo ndo ukweli mtupu, nakwambia. And now we are about to witness a grand finale of this political battle. Oh yes, political battle on Monday. When we are told, the governors will give the president compelling reasons, will push the president very aggressively to reinstitute lockdowns, part 2. And there's something else that has come up, which I want to bring to your attention. In what is clearly a blackmail move to push the government harder to reinstitute lockdowns and to shoot down the very strong argument from the other side that actually further lockdowns are not practical for the Kenyan economy. This other foreign financed part of the political divide has brought to the forefront the use of funds given to the Kenyan government for mitigation of the effects of the virus. It's as if we are being told, no lockdowns, na tutatoboa zaidi vile hizi pesa zimeharibiwa na zimekulwa na watu, na pengine tutataja majina ya hao watu ambao wamekula hizi fedha. This is going to be interesting. Clearly, we're headed towards a direction that could be very tragic. But at the same time, it's also true to say this is going to be super interesting. Because at a time when many Kenyans have no idea how they're going to pay their rent, how they're going to keep a roof over their heads and their loved ones, at a time when Kenyans are facing so many challenges, so much so that the virus is the least of their worries, even if it suddenly turns out to be a killer, and increases 100-fold its killing ability, Kenyans are least concerned because their attention is being pulled very strongly to other basics and basic challenges they are facing. Because Kenya and Africa is not the United States. Kenya and Africa is not a developed country. We live from hand to mouth in this part of the world. But at a time when we're facing all these challenges, there's this fascinating political battle going on. And one really has to ask, what is the end game here? What is the aim and the objective here? Because we know that humans don't change. It's not that people have suddenly become very concerned for the health of Africans and Kenyans. No. Something else is obviously going down here, and it's nothing to do with health. That should be very obvious now, if it was not obvious to you before. Now, there are those who are saying that after the meeting on Monday, the president will have absolutely no option but to take the country into lockdown, part 2, stricter and tighter than part one. And those who believe this are pointing to the script elsewhere in the world. We have seen major countries going back into lockdowns. We have seen it happening even here in Africa, in South Africa. And since the virus is following an international script, these people argue, then definitely on Monday, we already know what the outcome will be. But there's also the other side of the argument, who say, and quite rightly so, that the country called Kenya cannot bear lockdowns part two. Maybe South Africa can, it's a rich country. But Kenya, it is not viable. Anyway, we don't have to wait long to see what the outcome of Monday's meeting will be. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.